Glory to God. Welcome back. Welcome back. We're in our study of Proverbs chapter 1. We only got 5 verses done that time, but I love the Proverbs. If we go through the Proverbs over and over and over again, you're going to be wiser than anybody you know. I mean, it's going to be amazing because this is where a whole bunch of wisdom is. A whole bunch of wisdom. Now, we talked about verse 5 when we left off on the last segment, that a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels. You think you're making a wise decision, but if you seek wise counsel before you actually make that decision, you can be assured that you're making a good decision, because God will confirm through other people, that you're making the right decision. In verse 6 of chapter 1, Proverbs, to understand a proverb and the interpretation. See, there is an interpretation for every proverb. The words of the wise and their dark sayings. Now, dark means hidden in this context. Like a hidden saying, okay? Things that you might not pick up otherwise, okay? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Remember, both of those are among the 7 spirits. The fear of the Lord and knowledge. But fools despise wisdom and instruction. The fools, when it's talking about fools, it's not just talking about tares, it's talking about an attitude, okay? A foolish attitude, which is despising wisdom and instruction. You're going to find that until the children of God are called and drawn, they're not interested in the Bible. They're not interested in learning about God. They're despising instruction because they're walking foolishly. They haven't been called and drawn and taught better yet, okay? But you don't ever want to despise wisdom and instruction. Instruction can be painful, but it's always to your benefit. Always. In verse 8, my son, hear the instruction of thy father. So this is wisdom from God, not just from Solomon. He's a vessel for wisdom. And forsake not the law of thy mother. Okay, you want to obey your parents. For they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head, and chains about thy neck. Look at that, an ornament of grace. What this is saying is that if you are listening to your earthly parents, and their instruction and following it, that's an ornament of grace unto thy head. That's some kind of a reward or something, okay? They shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head. And that also means that if you're obeying the word, then God is going to, you would be ready for God to teach you more, as he'll teach you a little bit, and then if you'll obey that, he'll teach you more. But if you don't obey the little bit he teaches you, why should he teach you anything else? You know what I mean? You have to have an attitude of, yes, I want to learn. Yay. Teach me. And that's kind of in verse 10. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. And that happens to everybody at some point in their lives. Sinners are going to entice you into something you don't want to be a part of, and you end up wishing you hadn't. So he's saying, if sinners are enticing you to do something you know is wrong, consent thou not. Say no. Just say no. Forget it, In verse 11, if they say, come with us, let us lay wait for blood. Let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause. Well, you better run the other way, because if you join with them, you're going to end up in prison or dead with them. In verse 12, let us swallow them up alive as the grave. This is their attitude of those that are wanting to lay in wait for blood and lurk privily for someone innocent to prey on. It says, let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down into the pit. They want to hurt people. And people can be used to hurt other people all the time. It happens. That's why he says to pray for your enemies, because most of your enemies are fellow children of God. Okay, not tares. Your contact with tares as a child of God is probably extremely limited. Okay, there's not going to be a ton of them everywhere around you in your world. Children of God fellow children of God are usually the ones who end up offending, and that's why we're supposed to pray for our enemies, because most of our enemies are our siblings, unfortunately. In verse 13, we shall find all precious substance. We shall fill our houses with spoil. They don't want to work for a living. They want to go steal what other people have worked for a living to have. In verse 14, cast in thy lot among us. Let us all have one purse. It's saying, come and do this crime with us, and we'll split it. We'll split what we get out of it evenly. My son, walk not thou in the way with them. Refrain thy foot from their path. And if you listen to this, you might not end up in jail or dead. In verse 16, for their feet run to evil, and make haste to shed blood. There's a lot of people out there that are like this. And especially during this time that we live in, God has raised up a whole lot of tares, which contributes to the deterioration of the world in this generation. In verse 17, surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird. If you spread a net in the sight of a bird while he's watching you, you're not going to catch him in it, okay? But a net is spread for those that think like these foolish people are thinking. In verse 18, and they lay wait for their own blood. It's like they're hiding, thinking, okay, we're going to attack innocent blood, but what they're doing is cutting their own throats. It's like they lay wait for their own blood. Their own blood is what's on the line, not the blood of the person they're targeting. They lurk privily for their own lives. It's like they're sneaking up on themselves to destroy themselves. That's interesting, isn't it? Verse 19. So are the ways of everyone that is greedy of gain. If you're so greedy of gain that you won't go get a job and work rather than steal from those who do work hard, being greedy and being unemployed don't work well together, do they? So are the ways of everyone that is greedy of gain, which taketh away the life of the owners thereof. Now notice this. These who it just described, laying in wait for blood, they want to take some old lady's purse, or hurt some old man for, the $2.50 in his wallet. But they lay in wait to victimize people because they are greedy of gain. But they are not going to pursue that gain in legitimate ways. They don't want to actually go out and work. That's not even crossing their mind. Instead, they get several of them that are like-minded together, and then you have gang activity, and that's what all this is. But it says, it taketh away the life of the owners thereof. So if you're greedy of gain, that greed will take away your life at some point. So you want to shed that. In verse 20, wisdom crieth without. She uttereth her voice in the streets. Wisdom is available to us. And God makes it available, but will we grab hold of it and make use of it? Or ignore it and be foolish? In verse 21, she crieth in the chief place of concourse. See, they're calling wisdom a she. All right. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the openings of the gates. In the city she uttereth her words, saying, how long, ye simple ones? Simple means not wise. Okay? How long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? How long, unwise ones, will you love not being wise? Basically. And the scorners delight in their scorning. They always do. Somebody comes to mock and scorn, oh, they have such a good time until I respond. Okay. And the scorners delight in their scorning. And fools hate knowledge. Fools hate knowledge. They don't want to learn. Okay? They delight in their scorning. It's fun for them to scorn and mock our faith. It's fun for them. In verse 23, turn you at my reproof. Now that's what you're going to do. When he calls you, you're going to come. You got no choice. When he calls you, you come. But getting called by him is the best day of your life. All right? It's your lucky day. Turn you at my reproof. So he's saying, pay attention, listen to me, and follow my instruction. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you. Yea, I will make known my words unto you. He will make known his words unto us. Himself. He does that himself. He says, I will pour out my spirit unto you. I will make known my words unto you. He does that. He's so cool. I just love him. In verse 24, because I have called and ye refused, I have stretched out my hand and no man regarded. Now, this refusal also must be written. Okay? He says, because I have called and ye refused, that also had to be written. Nobody refuses the Almighty God unless he specifically ordains it to be that way. It's kind of like the Jews. He came to the Jews, but God blinded them. Israel is blinded in part until the fullness of the Gentiles become in. And God is the one that blinded them. Okay? He's the one that did it. But if he calls and you refuse, he wrote that refusal in there. Because you need a few more lessons before you figure out what he's trying to show you. But ye have set at naught all my counsel. And we all do that during our lives. Sometimes we will just be totally dumb and not pay attention to what he says. And would none of my reproof. He's saying you don't want God to correct you. And that's an attitude problem. Okay? In verse 26, I also will laugh at your calamity. He's saying, I tried to teach you. You didn't want to learn. You didn't want to be corrected. You didn't want to be instructed. So then I'm going to laugh at your calamity because you wouldn't be in it had you accepted the instruction. I will mock when your fear cometh. Have you ever dealt with a 3-year-old? Okay? We're like 3-year-olds, and he's our father. He's saying, have you ever told your kid, don't run near the side of the pool, don't run. and then they run and they fall and they get hurt. Well, sometimes a parent will go, I told you so, or they'll laugh and say, well, that's what happens when you don't listen. Well, that's what God is saying here. In verse 27, when your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind, when distress and anguish cometh upon you, not if, when, okay? Then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. He's saying, if you blow me off until you're in dire straits and then you call on me, I'm not going to answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. And when it says seek me early, once they're in trouble, they're real fast to seek you. But it's an attitude. There's not, you don't want to despise the correction, reproof, rebuke, chastening, whatever of God. Remember, you're supposed, you have, if you're chastened, that means you're a child of God. So you just take encouragement in that and tough it out. In verse 29, for that they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. Okay? They don't want anything to do with the fear of the Lord. Well, if you hate knowledge, you're not going to be given any. You're going to be stupid. All right? And the children of God, even in disobedience, are going to acknowledge their faith in Christ, even when they're walking in disobedience. All right? And even when children of God are walking in disobedience, we still have the Lord inside us from our birth, which means you have the seven spirits, access to those seven spirits within you. And so what he's looking for here when he says choose, because everything's written, we don't really choose anything. He says for that they hated knowledge, and when confronted with the fear of the Lord, they don't choose it. But the children of God, we do. We align. But the wicked can't and won't. In verse 30, they would none of my counsel. They don't want to know what God has to say. They don't want to know what God's instruction is. They despised all my reproof. It's an attitude here. Despising for God to correct them. Okay? In verse 31, therefore shall they eat of the fruit of their own way, and be filled with their own devices, which is bad news for them. For the turning away of the simple shall slay them. The simple. You're simple-minded if you're not wise. Okay? For the turning away of the simple shall slay them. They turn away from God, thinking, well, I'll think about him later or whatever. But they don't. It says, therefore shall they eat of the fruit of their own way. And that's bad. That's really bad for them. And be filled with their own devices. The things they plot against other people are used on them. Kind of like Haman building the gallows for Mordecai, and he's the one that hung on him. Haman was. He built it for somebody else, and he's the one that ended up hanging on it. In verse 32, for the turning away of the simple shall slay them. Having a lack of knowledge and wisdom from the word can end your life prematurely. Did you know that? For the turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. See, the prosperity of fools. You don't find children of God who are very prosperous. God doesn't allow you to be really prosperous, okay? And if you're walking with him and he sends prosperity your way, you're supposed to use that to keep it working in the kingdom. Translate it over to kingdom currency. In verse 33, but whoso hearkeneth unto me, if you listen to me, he's saying, hearkeneth means pay attention, listen, unto me shall dwell safely. Did you hear that? But whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely, and shall be quiet from fear of evil. Fear of evil. Now, see, I get attacked all the time. I'm all the time. All the time. But I'm no worse for the wear, am I? Well, I mean, don't answer that. But whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely. I don't worry about whether or not I'm safe. The horse is prepared for battle, but safety is of the Lord. Okay? So he says, whoever hearkeneth, that means listen and pay attention and obey, and follow the instruction. Whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely. You want to be safe? Listen to God and obey the word. And shall be quiet from fear of evil. I'm not afraid of evil. Not at all. Now, I don't like it. It's a bummer, and, it's terrible, but I'm not afraid of it. Okay? There's a difference in being afraid of evil. Don't fear evil. Evil is just a lapdog. Satan's just a lapdog for God. His pet devil on a leash. That's all he is. You don't have to fear him. Okay? Because there's nothing he can do to you unless God assigns him. See, he took away all of Job's wealth, all of his wealth, all of his family, and then even his health. But God is the one who said, yeah, do that, and let's see his reaction. He was showing Job off. Because Job never sinned against God with his lips, no matter how much was poured on him. Even his wife said, why don't you just curse God and die? And Job did not sin against God with his lips. He passed the test, but God knew he would before he ever showcased him on the pedestal and said, have you considered my servant Job? Okay? So I think about that. Whenever you're going through a lot of, I think about that. When you're going through some really, bad struggles, I've thought to myself before, well, has God put me on the table and said, have you considered my servant Lisa? Sometimes it's pretty bad to where you think, wow, But he says here, but whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely. You want to be safe? Listen to God and do as he says. Follow his instruction. And whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely and shall be quiet from fear of evil. You will not be afraid of evil because he can cause it to keep its distance from you. Isn't that amazing? I mean, the wisdom that you can glean from just one chapter, Proverbs. We've got about 2 minutes left in this segment. I love the Proverbs. And we'll go through these a lot, hopefully, in the next couple of years while we're watching and waiting on big things to come. Oh, I wanted to tell you something while I'm thinking of it. The other day on the show, I was talking about how Revelation chapter 10, where we've got the 7 thunders, that it could be the seal, could be the 7th angel would be the seal. No, it's not. That's wrong. This is the 7th trumpet angel. So these 7 thunders are not before the trib. These particular ones are at the 7th trumpet. And then you've got the wrath, the vials. So I wanted to correct that because I had said that was a possibility, and no, it's not either a possibility. The 7 thunders, it's not possible for them to come before the trib, but it is possible that there could be, some bad things and possibly nuclear exchanges. before we would go. But these in particular, these 7 thunders in particular, those come at the 7th trumpet. So we definitely will not be here for those. Okay. We've got like 1 minute. Okay. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back.